welcome to a Gooner Ramble podcast special. I'm your host Giles, reprising the role once again, and joining me are regular Akhil. You alright, mate?
Yep, all good.
Good man. Mark, considering what's been going on, are you okay? You still with us?
I've survived the day, mate.
And also another special guest, we've got Ricky, aka Jeezy Peas. How you doing, mate?
I'm cool, man.
Yeah, good to have you on.
Thanks.
I think, well, you all sound quite chipper. Well, all right, considering we've drawn a blank in the last final hours of the transfer window. I'm going to start with the accusations, as people have called it on Twitter and social media, levelled against the club and Arsene Wenger. And I want to ask you first, guys, with more than enough money in the bank, reportedly anything between 60 to 80, maybe even more, set aside for transfer negotiations or activity, why is it we've only bought one first team player, and at that, not even an outfield player? I'll start with you, Mark.
Why didn't we? I really don't know, mate. Yeah, I mean, we've got an awful lot of money, even by City and Chelsea standards. We've got an awful lot of money that we could have spent, and it wasn't like we needed to do what we did last season, replace a load of outgoing players and add another star to the team. Yeah, we literally needed to get a better keeper if we could, and we did a good job of doing that with Czech. And then we had the rest of the summer to try and look at two things. One is to get an additional centre forward. Was either better than Giroud or, gave us that different option up front to what Giroud does. And then to maybe look at getting a better DM than Coquelin, or at least getting some cover for him that you would consider would be better than Flamini or Arteta. Now, a club the size of Arsenal is a huge draw to a football player. Particularly when you look at the number of players that have come into the Premiership. Even teams like Stoke are attracting decent footballers, and it's certainly nothing to do with their style of football or the city of Stoke, believe me. So they can still attract decent players. So why can't Arsenal?
It's a lovely place.
Yeah, nothing a tactical nuclear strike wouldn't improve. We've got people keep telling me we still have an excellent manager who is a big draw for players to come and play for, so I'll accept that may be still the feeling within the game. We have got brilliant stadium, great fan base, especially the away fans, brilliant training facilities. We're in London, we pay good money. How can we not have found two players? I do not understand how we haven't found two players. My worry is that we tried, which was what we were told. They were working night and day. We tried really, really, really hard, and we failed. What that says to me is there is an inherent problem within our scouting network and or our teams that do the negotiating once the targets have been identified and Wenger has said, go and get me that player.
Ricky,
so I don't know, mate.
Okay. Ricky, you've heard Mark's argument there. How would you respond to that? I mean, do you think that we, in your eyes, the club have done sufficiently enough to bring in the players that we have, or try to bring in the players that we have?
During this window, it'd be hard for anybody to argue that we brought in players that, we're considered to need, or, what I'm concerned about is whether it's a need or a desire. We want certain players. We all want new players. It just feels like every transfer window is treated like, WrestleMania or something like that, and we have to win the transfer window. It's not important to me. Over the last 12 months, we've signed 5 players that are now, pretty much on the verge or certainly integrated as part of the first team, perhaps even the first 11. And that's a lot of signs. So I don't agree that it's an inherent problem within the club to get deals over the line. I do think that our expectations have gone up, and rightly so, every summer, every transfer window, every season, as they should do. That's exactly what they should do. But the answer to the original question, why hasn't it happened? I think the answer for everybody is we don't know. And what I don't understand is why everybody gets so angry or so defensive, one way or the other. I'm obviously, everybody who knows me or will have seen my Twitter profile will know that I'm certainly on the positive side. I'm a firm believer in Wenger and what he does with the team. But, I don't know anything about the team of people that work with him. I don't know anything about the targets that he laid out or how it works in terms of getting those deals across the line. But, I do believe, that we would have tried to get the players that he thinks are right. Arsene Wenger has a track record of working with some of the best strikers in the world. He knows talent. He knows footballers. And when you see him talk about Alexis or Ozil or, whoever else he's got playing for him, you see his eyes light up when he's talking about great football. I just don't believe for a second that, Arsene is happy or content to play with footballers below the standard that he, feels he's at. And he's an elite manager. It's for me without question that he would want elite players, and the real elite players are the ones that play, in the final third of the pitch. They're the ones that make the difference in the big games, and they're the ones that excite everybody and get them off their chairs. So when you've worked with, right back to Georgie Ware and people like that, but Thierry Henry and Nicolas Anelka and Dennis Bergkamp, I don't believe that Arsene Wenger doesn't want to work with the best players in the world. So I don't believe that it, in any way would be a refusal to bring in a centre forward. I just don't think he sees the point in bringing in somebody else who might not even take Giroud out of the team.
Do you feel that the signing of Benzema wouldn't be sufficient enough to take us or help us get to the next level? I mean, a lot of people throughout the summer, since it had been mooted or whatever, about us having an interest in Benzema and Benzema possibly being interested in working with Wenger. If that was the case, if there's any truth to that rumour, do you feel that Benzema, someone of Benzema's ilk, would have the quality to raise our game enough to sort of make us even more considerable title contenders?
I don't know. I think he would certainly improve us. As a squad, there's nobody could possibly argue that he wouldn't. Whether he would take us up to the next level, and you got to remember the next level is City and Chelsea, and it's as much as I think we could be right in there, I don't think Benzema is a player that you're going to bring in and think, right, that's it, we've made the league now. It's difficult. It's not as simple as that. I think there's multiple things that need to happen. You could put Benzema in every Arsenal team that we've, in every game that we've played this season, and we still wouldn't have performed well against West Ham or, at the weekend. It's, you can't get a team to play well just because you've got one additional player who's a bit better than the striker you've already got. I think the jump from, people who I consider at a similar level, I don't think Giroud is a million miles behind Benzema, and the numbers kind of support that. The jump to the likes of Suarez and Aguero, who I see in the group above that, is massive. And then the jump from them to the likes of Ronaldo and Messi is even bigger. It's difficult.
Okay, I'm going to bring Akhil into this now. Ax, you've heard both the arguments. What's your take on what's been happening?
The way I've looked at it, and the way I've looked at it all summer, was up front Arsenal wanted someone in, but they wanted that sort of elite, worldy, as I call them, a real world-class player. And I think, what Ricky's just said is right. You're not going to get Messi or Ronaldo, so you look who's the next person or the next group, and that is Suarez and Aguero, which ironically, a couple of years ago, that was probably the one that got away in terms of Luis Suarez.
Big time.
After that, you've got the Lewandowski, perhaps, got the Cavani, the Benzemas, and that was probably the market we were trying to shop in. I do think Arsene Wenger wanted a striker. I think, I think he chased Benzema kind of all summer. For whatever reason, it hasn't happened. Selling some, not wanting to sell, a player not wanting to come, perhaps, I don't know. But I think if you go below that, we haven't really seen many strikers move this summer. People say Jackson Martinez, which, yeah, maybe he would have come in and done a really good job. But suddenly, a lot of people are sort of experts in European football, and you know, I'll admit I haven't seen enough of Jackson Martinez to even know. You know, it's just you know, don't watch as much football in that country as I do in others. So, you know, I think up front, I think there's a reason perhaps why it didn't happen. I think what kind of makes me sort of look into it deeper is if Manchester United have signed a striker, you know, that if they had got Benzema or Cavani, then you would have had to ask serious questions and think, all right, why didn't Arsenal get him? But the fact that, you know, none of the other big clubs really have got strikers, there is a real lack of world-class strikers out there, and I think that's shown this summer. So I think I can sort of understand that side there. I think sort of the holding player, you know, I think that's a little bit harder to justify, because I think, you know, Francis Coquelin's done really well, but you know, if he's out for 6 months, if he gets a long-term injury, then, you know, we are in trouble. I think Mikel Arteta's done really well when he's come on for 10, 15 minutes. You know, against Palace, I thought he shored it up a little bit on Saturday as well. But I think, you know, you think about Christmas time and we've got 3 games in a week, you know, you wouldn't want Mikel Arteta to have to play 3 games in a week because he probably wouldn't get through them. So I think that's a real risk. And there were players out there, you know, perhaps players who were going for 20 to 30 million, which is a lot of money. But, you know, competition is great as well. I think Francis Coquelin deserves his chance, of course, but competition makes you better. We've seen that at left back. Nacho Monreal has just improved, you know. Probably about 18 months ago, we would have thought Kieran Gibbs, as long as he stays fit, will be our number 1 left back. But Monreal has just taken that challenge. Same at right back. Hector Bellerin has just come in and proved he's just not getting a look in anymore. So, you know, I think competition is great. And I think in that holding player, I think that's where perhaps we've made a mistake. And, you know, it comes down to luck now. I think we do have a very, very good squad, you know. If you kind of look at the squad, there are 2 players for each position pretty much everywhere, including defensive midfield, where maybe Mikel Arteta comes in. But, you know, the quality perhaps isn't there. And even up front, you know, Danny Welbeck come back. Though you could argue, will Walcott play there? I don't know. But there are players in every position, but you just worry about those 2 that if Giroud's out because of the style we play in, we could probably survive a few games, but, you know, long term it would be tough. And obviously, Francis Coquelin, if he misses any sort of periods of the season, then we could be in trouble.
Mark, do you agree with what Akhil has just stated there in terms of, you know, the DM and the striking position?
I agree slightly. I think obviously it's always going to be a slightly different opinion from Akhil and from Ricky as well, because of where they stand in the overall debate. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's like if you need if you want a striker, and he wanted Benzema, I mean, you know, I'm just hoping he wasn't misled towards Benzema in the same way that he was towards Suarez, in some way, thinking that he was going to buy. I mean, I'm not being funny. Real Madrid, you don't go and bully Real Madrid for players. Yeah, the only time Madrid sell a player is when they want rid. As we've seen to our benefit. But so, you know, why he'd have thought that we could go and bully them for him, maybe, I don't know, unless he was, like I said, he was given a bum steer. But, you know, if you can't buy Benzema, if you then really are going to look at your squad and you're gonna send Sanogo, who he bought, you send him off to Ajax. You're going to send Akpom off to Hull on loan. You're going to flog Podolski to Galatasaray. You know, you're going to do all that quite early within the window, and then you can't find any other striker. We mentioned Danny Welbeck. You know, Danny Welbeck's been out injured for best part of almost 5 months already, with an injury that's a little bit mysterious. You know, how long will it be before he's back? Hopefully soon. But, you know, he doesn't tear it up at centre forward for Arsenal, to be fair. You know, Theo, everyone bangs on about playing Theo there, and Theo's got a lot of the right attributes. You know, I mean, I thought the best chance he had on Sunday was the one where he followed in Alexis' shot. And somebody made the point that no other Arsenal player would have got anywhere near that rebound. And that's right. But then again, there's no point in getting there because he's not clinical enough. He should have finished that quite easily, but he didn't. So, Theo up there. So therefore, where is the next level? Right? If you're saying the next level is moved down to sort of Cavani status, we'll try and go and buy him a bit earlier rather than seemingly the last day of the window, or look below that and try and buy someone, or just find a player, who's the next option. I'm not being funny. Go and buy the next Anthony Marshall. Monaco only paid £5 million bleeding quid for the fella 2 years ago. So why are we not buying these players, or are these all the youngsters we've got that are still so far off it doesn't matter? You'd have to think that for a club, this is Arsenal. Yeah, for a club of our standing, the money we can pay in London, you could find a player who would give you an additional option. Yeah, if Giroud gets injured on international duty, then we can't buy anyone now. I mean, we were lucky last year that he got injured just before the window shut, so that we could get Welbeck. If that had happened the game after the window had shut, we'd have been well stuck. So I can't fathom the reason why we haven't found a player. And for a DM, to me, it's even worse, because we know that there are players out there who we could have got to give a bit of cover and a little bit of competition to keep Coquelin on his toes. And we've already seen in 2 games this season, he could have got a red card at Palace and he could have got his leg broke at Newcastle, because of the style of player he is. So, I don't know if we can rely on, I love the boy, but I don't know, I think relying on him and then only having Arteta and Flamini as an option is a huge risk that we did not need to take.
I can definitely see Mark's angle in terms of, okay, you could say that we'll go with what we've got in the striking department, but Theo hasn't been given a run, an extended run, as a centre-forward. Danny Welbeck came to us, hadn't really had a run as a centre-forward at all. I mean, he done all right when he first come in, got injured, came back, scored a couple of vital goals, but you're not what you would call proven strikers in the Arsenal setup. People say Jackson Martinez and Carlos Bacca aren't of the Suarez standard, but you put them side by side, compare them to Theo Walcott and Danny Welbeck, surely they are proven enough to add the quality and depth, not just bodies, but actually quality of depth that we require over the long haul of this season. Similarly, in defensive midfield, you've seen Kondogbia, we've seen Schneiderlin, I don't know what happened with the Krychowiak thing, maybe we weren't ever in for him, but he's another one that came to Seville for 4 million. His transfer value is his release force is 30 million. We didn't go and put a bid in for him. There seems to be gaping holes, and I can see why people are so fed up with this sort of Groundhog Day mentality. We've got 60 million burning a hole in the bank. We've got somebody called, I think it's Plymouth Gooner, he says 60 plus million budget, one of the best scouting networks in the world, and we found nobody. Isn't that BS? You've got to ask yourself, if, as Mark was saying, if the clubs like Stoke can go out and buy qualities, clubs like Crystal Palace can go out and buy quality, surely we can. Asking the question, is the person worth 40 million when we should only be paying 30 million, is really kind of like a mute question, because next season, that's the standard you're going to have to be paying. 40 million is going to be the benchmark to get a half decent player, surely. So why are we reticent about going out and spending that money? I don't know what you think of that, Axe.
So I was on mute there. I mean, I've sort of said the point earlier. I think the up-front striker, it's all about opinions there, Some might tell you that, Danny Welbeck with a run in the team could, do a really good job for us. When he signed, I know he only scored about 5 or 6 goals in the season, but there was that period where I think he scored the hat-trick against Galatasaray. He went away with England and scored twice away to Switzerland, I think, if I'm right. He was kind of top goal scorer in the European qualifiers. It's an opinion. I'm not saying it's my opinion, but there is an opinion out there that says that perhaps Danny Welbeck could could support Olivier Giroud. I think, as I said before, it's that holding player. That's where pretty much a lot of the fan base are all agreed that, even though, he's a good player, he's a tidy player, he can certainly play a role on and off the field. But I think most of the fan base would agree that if Francis Coquelin is out, we are stuffed. So I think it's in two parts there. I think the club, I try and be kind of as fair as I can be, which is why I kind of can see the striker point of view, but the holding player it's really difficult to see that.
Ricky, looking at what we have now, what we're going ahead with, do you still think the squad that we've assembled, that we have now at Wenger's disposal, is sufficient to continue the progress we've made over the last season? Because even some people were saying, was last season really even progress? Can we continue, not just maintain where we are, but actually press on? Do you feel confident that the team, the club, can press on?
Yes. Absolutely. I think we can press on. I think it's hard to argue with anything that Mark or Akhil said. We are in a position where we definitely could have, again, done something. And it's, everyone knows I'm not a massive fan of Flamini. A lot of people definitely wanted him starting for us and saying that, after watching him play for a few games, that he was exactly what we needed, the season before last. I wasn't even sold that we needed a straight DM, but since having seen Coquelin, who, perhaps isn't a straight DM, it certainly made me think a lot more about, what we could do with, a marked improvement on him. My actual feeling is that, it seems that Walcott is now the second centre forward, and, certain promises or conversations have been had between him and the management that he will play as a second centre forward. And what that's meant is that now he isn't starting games. He's actually on the bench when Giroud starts. And I actually think that the most gaping hole in our first 11 when Coquelin and Giroud are fit is actually the right wing, because I think Walcott is our best right wing forward. And I think that him and Giroud should be starting together. But if they start together and it's not working, where is the option from the bench? Flamini isn't a bad third choice. You're going to third choice before Flamini gets in your first team. I don't think it's a terrible situation. If I was making a choice of where to buy, it would have been, someone on that right hand side personally. But yeah, I don't see any reason why the players in this team won't continue to grow, won't continue to improve. The window's thrown me a little bit because of our performances so far this season. Have just really surprised me. They've been nowhere near the level that I expected in terms of, the urgency and predominantly, particularly the quality on the ball has been nowhere near the level that even I expect. And so, that's kind of knocked my confidence a little bit as to how close we can challenge. You look at Chelsea, who are the champions and finished 12 points above us last season, and they're struggling even more than we are.
Mark, I want to bring you in. Mark, I want to bring you in now. So, where do you see the squad now as it is? Are you confident that we can progress? Because I know you were one of the guys that were actually questioning whether 14-15 was a year of progression. Like points-wise, we'd amassed less, even though we were higher up. That's because of Liverpool had dropped off the face of the earth. Where do you see? Are you confident that with what we've got, the tools that we've got in our squad now, we can actually go on and improve and actually really mount a proper title challenge?
To be honest, I've got feelings that it could kind of go either way. To be fair, if we have some better luck with injuries, in terms of getting them, and also in terms of players returning to fitness quicker, that would be a big help. I'm really, really pleased we bought Petr Cech, because not only, there's no way Ospina or Chesney would have made those two saves that he made against Liverpool. It just wouldn't have happened. That would have been 2 goals to Liverpool, without a doubt, in my opinion. So I'm really pleased we got him, and I think he will give a lot more confidence and organisation once he's used to playing behind the back four that we've got, which is very different to the Chelsea one he's used to. So I just struggle now. I mean, I think City have done really well in this transfer window. Going back to what Ricky said, about winning the transfer window. I don't think it's about who wins the transfer window. It's about each club doing what's needed. And I certainly think City appear, I know it's only 4 games, but they appear to have addressed some of their issues. And I think that in Sterling and Otamendi and in De Bruyne, I think they've picked up 3 very, very good players. And I think they're going to be the team to beat. Chelsea have had a bad start. I hope that continues. I think the biggest thing that they will struggle with is losing Terry, not only as a centre-half, but also as a leader. They will never replace Terry in the same way that we never really kind of replaced Adams. He's a one-off character. He was Jose Mourinho on that pitch, i.e. objectionable twat. But, he did represent the manager on the pitch, and he was, as much as we all hated him, he was their leader. So I think once they lose him, they will struggle, because I don't think that team has got anyone else who can pick up that mantle. So United could go either way. At the moment, they look like a sack of shit, mainly because of the manager, but he could turn that around and get them on an even keel. The same thing at Liverpool. I don't see them as a threat. But I just worry that the best for us is second or third again this year, and that we could have actually really given ourselves a chance of it definitely being second, and a chance of taking City on for the title. And it would be nice to try and get to the last 8 or even the semis of the Champions League.
So in your estimation, that you're not very confident the squad's capable of doing it.
I think I'd say we took one step forward, and then stopped. And I think City have taken a few more steps forward. And at the moment, it's hard to say where Chelsea will be. But I still think we'll definitely have enough to stay in front of United, and Liverpool and the shower of shit from up the road.
All right, Akhil, we've got another question here from who was it? What's his name? Where is it? It was here just a minute ago. His name is continuous precarity at SG Crazy 00, and he says buying more players can also mean the end of Arsenal career or growth of the likes of Jack, Ox, Theo, Ramsey. Should we be more ruthless or persist with the promise of youth?
That's a tough one. I think in this sort of transfer window, the positions us fans wanted perhaps addressing or strengthen were positions where those players weren't playing. So I think buying a striker or a cover as defensive midfield, that wouldn't have affected Ramsey, Wilshere, Chamberlain, etc. So no, I think we sort of continue as we are. But obviously we can't do it now, but in the next window or next summer or whenever it's going to be, we kind of strengthen the positions where we need to. But I still think, the core, the British core there, and sort of the young players are developing well. Obviously, it's all individual cases. I think there's a few issues with the team at the moment, as a team. Then there's a few issues individually, like fitness issues with Wilshere, with players like that. So I think it's a little bit of a mix. But I mean, just to come in about the point that you asked Mark as well, I actually think this kind of international break, I think, it's a massive one for Arsene Wenger, actually, to kind of now start thinking about how he's going to shape this team. Because regardless of if we had signed anyone, whatever, we do have a very good squad. But at the moment, it's slightly unbalanced, perhaps. It's slightly, obviously it's not firing in all cylinders. We can see that. But, I wrote a piece about it probably about a week or 2 ago, I think, about kind of just shoring that up a little bit. So, defensively, I think we know our first 11, our first choice back 5, 6 even with Coquelin. But I think after that, obviously Ozil, Sanchez, they probably start Giroud and fit. But the Santi Cazorla, Aaron Ramsey kind of issue. I think, Ramsey playing on the right. It's worked in some games. I think of Hull last year away from home, it worked well. But more often than not, it hasn't quite looked balanced. We've looked a bit narrow. We often, Ramsey would want to come in. Alexis also wants to come in. So it gets very narrow, and then the only width we have is our fullbacks, basically. So I think that's what needs to be addressed, because I think that can actually make us a really good team. Obviously, buying a world-class striker might have done as well, but there are other ways to improve as well. And I think that's key. And I think you talked about Theo Walcott being sort of the number 2 striker, or it might have been Ricky that mentioned it. But I totally agree with that. It does seem like Theo Walcott is the number 2 striker, so he's not going to play unless he's playing up front. But perhaps with Welbeck coming back, it could change, because I actually think, on the right hand side, Theo Walcott's, it's probably his best position. I think he adds width, he adds goals. He was starting to just develop his game, develop his intelligence as well. I think it's not seeing him on the right does actually pain me, because he's one of my players I like to watch a lot. I think he's explosive. I think he's a good finisher as well. Is he clinical enough to play up front? Maybe that's an argument, that's a debate to have. But generally, I think Theo Walcott's a great player, and I think if he was playing on the right, it could make a difference. I think Chamberlain as well needs games. But obviously, what do you do with sort of Santi Cazorla, Aaron Ramsey? It's all about sort of squad management as well going forward. I think keeping the players fresh is kind of key. We're really lucky in a sense that we've got perhaps Santi Cazorla and Aaron Ramsey that can both play that box-to-box role. There's no reason why we can't keep them both fresh, why we can't keep them both sort of firing all season. Same with on the right with Theo, with Chamberlain. Welbeck can also obviously come in and play wide, can play up front. So I think that's going to be the most important thing. I think the transfer window now, it's done. As Mark said, we added a world-class goalkeeper. That is one area we have to address, which we did. But I think now it's actually up to the manager now to kind of look into the tactical side a little bit, and who our first 11 is, and perhaps some players are suited to other to some games and some players are suited to other games. I don't know, but there's certainly we've got a good enough squad to be doing performance-wise better than we have in the first four games. So that's going to be the focus now, I think.
What do you think the reasons are for the sort of indifferent start, sort of up and down start to the season? I mean, I spoke with Jane Cavendish the other day, and she suggested it could be periodization. The fact that we're starting the preseason without having to think about the Champions League qualifier, therefore adjusting how we, I suppose, train and condition the squad. That might have had an effect in terms of the slow start. What do you think to that?
It's kind of difficult. I think, people will probably maybe disagree, but I think probably agree, but they won't admit it, that I think Alexis was kind of rushed back a little bit. Perhaps, obviously, he's probably one of our best players, so you can kind of see why, but, I think that we started the season prepared, but I don't know, I think it comes down to balance again. That balance isn't quite there. Whether it's, an earlier start to the season, whether it's, all the reasons you just gave, I don't know. It's very difficult. It's watching training every day will probably tell you that. I mean, Arsene Wenger has said that, a couple of players aren't physically there. I thought Olivier Giroud, first game, second game, did not, even though he put in a shift against Palace, didn't quite look physically there. I don't know why. But I think it comes down to balance again. I think we're just perhaps not getting the best out of the players as we could, because they're really, really good footballers.
Ricky, do you think it was a case of, because, coming into the first league game of the season, Wenger said, case of overconfidence, and then we lost, I think we beat Palace, and we lost to, we lost to West Ham, didn't we? And then I think we beat Palace and we drew, and he said, against Liverpool, he said that there was a case of maybe the lads there was a lack of confidence. The defeat against West Ham has sort of shook their confidence. Do you think it's anything to do with that, or do you think it's to do with conditioning, or arrogance or the shape. Both Mark and Akhil have talked about the shape of the team. Where do you see the problems lying that we need to get right going forward?
I don't think it's arrogance. You see these players in interviews and talking, and their personalities on the pitch, and they don't strike me as arrogant footballers. I actually think to a certain extent some of that's missing a little bit. When you remember the great Arsenal teams in their pomp, there was 3, 4, 5 players you wouldn't consider arrogant, but they knew they were the bollocks. And I don't think we've got enough players like that now. I think that confidence, undoubtedly. I don't remember during pre-season a misplaced pass. And, you can put whatever quality of opponent you want in front of a team, but, if they're passing the ball perfectly, they're going to play you, as well as they can. And this season, we just haven't seemed to be able to pass the ball well. And that for me points to confidence, not fitness. It's not been a lack of options. The balls have just been misplaced. The opportunity for the pass has been there. The pass has been made, and it's just been way off. Like I said, I've been really surprised. With me mentioning, I think Walcott should be starting on the right. I do think there's an issue with balance in the team. I don't know if it's balance, but certainly width to get beyond someone who's got the desire to get beyond someone, which does, I can sort of understand the argument for people who can watch a game and within a game think, Oxlade-Chamberlain could come on in this game and make a difference. But for me, the glaring hole in the team is Theo Walcott on the right. I think he should be starting every game on the right.
At the same time, I know I actually just banged on about sort of playing Theo there and telling everyone how much I love him. But at the same time, perhaps with Hector Bellerin now as our number one, Walcott in front of him, we haven't really seen it much. Perhaps that's the thinking behind it, that actually with quite an offensive looking right back, does Theo offer enough protection? I think if Matty Debussy was actually our number one and playing more, I think you could probably, argue, Walcott should definitely start. I still think he should start. I think, it might be seen as a bit of a risk, but I can kind of see why that is. I think, do you think that could be a potential burden, perhaps?
Absolutely. And I made the point about Oxlade-Chamberlain that when, there was a real clamour for him to be starting games after the Liverpool match, I thought, particularly tonight, we've got Chambers next to Bellerin, who would have then had Oxlade-Chamberlain in front of him, who, despite everything he does, is good, which is a lot of things. He does give the ball away. He doesn't work as hard as Theo or Ramsey when off the ball. And I don't think Theo on the right is as much of a risk as it may seem. Hello?
Yep, go on. We can hear you.
Oh, it sounded like I lost somebody then.
Yeah.
I don't have any real concerns about Theo and Hector working together. I think they both work very hard. I think they're both very fast. I don't think there's as much need for Bellerin to overlap when Theo's on the pitch as there is when Ramsey's on the pitch, which obviously helps us out in midfield when Ramsey comes inside and Hector goes past him. But when the ball gets lost and then goes past Aaron, we're left, with our right-sided centre-back isolated like we used to be a lot of the time in the old days. The difference is that our centre-backs aren't at the level that they used to be. When you had Sol Campbell or Kolo Toure there, it wasn't so much of a problem. But with someone like Per there, or his obvious replacement in Chambers, if Gabriel's essentially the backup to Koscielny, it's a concern with pace down that side if there's no one there mopping up when we lose the ball, and that was always been my concern with Chamberlain. I don't really have that concern with Theo.
Mark, I want to bring you in. Talking about the right-hand side, it lends to the other question: where do you fit Ramsey in? Does he fit in? If he does fit in the centre, do you take out Cazorla? Where do you've listened to everybody's take on it? You've mentioned about the width and the right. Where do you see the combinations, the permutations, and how would you think we can get around that?
Interesting question. Aaron Ramsey is, one of my favourite topics. Just quickly on the fitness issue, I'm not sure how we can win. Yeah, last season, Bad start to the season. Why was that? Oh, yeah, World Cup players, not ready, blah, blah, blah. European Champions League qualifiers, all of that didn't help. This year, finished third, no Champions League qualifiers, no tournament. We'll be fit and roaring and ready to go. But apparently not. So, okay, I'm not really too sure what's going on there. Ramsey. So far, Ramsey's played wide right, he's played central midfield, and he's played in the hole. To me, I think Arsene Wenger needs to, and I think kind of both the other guys have sort of said this, Arsene Wenger needs to make a decision and stick to it, because if he keeps kind of trying to move players around to fit other players in, I'm not sure how we can get any sort of routine going and a real run of form. And I think the biggest issue is, where does he play Ramsey? To my mind, he shouldn't play him out wide on the right. I can understand why he gives him a go there, but I don't think it works. I'd rather see the Ox there, or at a push, Theo. I'm not as big a fan of Theo as Jeezy obviously is. Can he play him next to Coquelin? We've kind of seen it, and it doesn't always work, because Santi gives Coquelin a little bit more support, particularly in terms of Coquelin can win the ball, give it short to Cazorla, who can then link the play up. Whereas if Ramsey's disappeared off somewhere, it's harder for Coquelin to find him. And in the hole, well, maybe he could have a go there if Ozil was out long term, but obviously Ozil is the number 10, and that's the way it should be. So I don't know. I think what Akhil said, that Wenger needs to sit down now, and he knows what he's got until January, and he needs to figure out what he wants to do, unless he is following this Brazil 1970 team full of number 10s that maybe he's thinking about playing, where he's got players all over the place. I mean, you could see at times that against Newcastle, there were players swapping, and at one point I think Oxlade-Chamberlain was playing up front, and that it's just, I don't know. I just think he's trying too much, and nothing's really working. I think maybe just go back to what served us so well towards the end of last season, and then figure out how you can actually make that work better at home, because at the moment that's what's causing us a problem, is when teams come and camp out, we really, really are struggling to figure a way of breaking them down, and that's going to be an issue, because we need those points at home, and we're a bit like West Ham. We're much better away from home than we are at home at the moment.
Interesting.
The next two games, so to cut in, is kind of, they're two very different games. Stoke at home, and then I think Chelsea away. How different do you want games? And it's for me, it's sometimes not about picking one or the other. It's about who's suited to the game. And against Stoke at home, you expect to have a lot of the ball. Probably Santi Cazorla, who's better on the ball, would be a good option. Chelsea away, perhaps you put Ramsey in for that sort of work ethic, for that kind of box to box, that energy kind of thing. Perhaps it works like that. I don't think necessarily you have to pick one over the other. I think you just have to kind of, look at who you're playing sometimes, and maybe look at who's in form, fitness, condition, all that sort of stuff as well. I think we've got a lot of options there. Just maybe we're not using them as best we could.
Interestingly, I mean, I had this school of thought that Ramsey can't play with Coquelin, but I was actually told that they've actually hardly played together. They've actually hardly had the chance to play together. In tandem. I think there's only one game against the rivals. I think there might have been one game where they actually played together, but you think they played against Man, they haven't. Chelsea, they haven't played together. One's always been out, or the other's not been playing. So we actually haven't had the chance to actually see if they can actually work together.
I mean, if you think of last year when we went to Man City, I think Ramsey, Cazorla, and Coquelin played in the middle, with I think Ozil played out wide.
Coquelin was sitting in deep, wasn't it? And it was a 4-1-4-1, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I think, did Ozil play wide that day?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. He might not be as effective there, but perhaps, when you go to Chelsea, when you go to City, perhaps sometimes you do have to make a tweak like that, which Arsene Wenger did last year, and obviously it worked. So I just think it's finding that balance. It's difficult.
Just quickly, at Gooner Jevi says, with the players available now at our disposal, would it be better to go, I think he's talking about a diamond shape with two up front. That's Alexis and Giroud up front. Ozil just behind them at the tip of the diamond. Then either Wiltshire and Ramsey alongside Cazorla dictating, and Coquelin you shielding the midfield. Do you think there's, I mean, Wenger's actually said before that he would consider playing two up front. Do you think a diamond shape would work well in our system? Just very quickly, Ricky, yes or no? Diamond system?
No.
No. Axe? No.
So I've got a pen and paper here. I'm actually playing around with it. But again, it's about balance. It's just, no.
No, right. Yeah, Marky?
No, I mean, no, it goes back to what Axe said. Maybe change your tactics and your system to other teams, but I don't think Wenger does that often. And by the way, Ozil didn't play at City.
Right. Thank you for that.
Well, that's why we played the 3. I knew he wasn't playing in the number 10 role, but fair enough.
Cool. All right.
Was he on the bench? Was he on the bench, or was he just not?
Unused sub.
All right, interesting.
There you go. All right. Next question.
Sell him.
Hey, shit. All right. Final question then. It's always on the tip of everyone's tongue, especially at the end of every transfer window. Is Wenger still capable? Is he still the man who win us the Premier League and the Champions League? Mark, we'll start with you.
No, he's not.
I think we know the answer.
Yeah, no, I'm afraid nothing. I last season I thought maybe he'd seen the light and some other changes within the club were going to help us get to that point, and he was adjusting tactics, and I thought, get the right players in, and he got check in, and I thought, right, now really just find the 2 players we've got, and then you've got a squad that's capable of competing, and then it will all come down to your management, your man management, your motivation, your coaching of the play, the tactics and that, and prove to us that you can do it. Yeah, not buying the players to me just says no, he can't. And I'd be even more amazed if he could win the league with this squad or get to the Champions League final than I would have been last year.
Ricky? How would you
absolutely.
Yeah. And why is that?
I have great faith in the man. He's got a proven track record. He's competed at the very highest level in the Premier League with squads well below the quality of teams above us. We're now getting to a point where the quality of our team, the quality of our squad has improved immeasurably, in my opinion. We're winning trophies again. The boys are getting older. The additions that we've made have really only been, in the last couple of years, real, for me, quality players. Apart from, you're going to get your Snowden and stuff, where you take the odd risk here or there, but, we've signed Gabriel, who looks a snap, Ozil, Alexis, Petr Cech. I mean, just the trend. Before we were keeping the sort of middle quality players in the squad and losing our best. And now we're, keeping our best. Because if we're going after Benzema and Man United are going after Bale and Chelsea are going after Pogba, don't think for a second that people aren't coming for Alexis or Ozil or, any of our players. But you didn't hear even a whisper about it, and tells you everything you need to know. The players are happy, they're content here, they want to be here. And it's a build. There's no question, no argument that we perhaps could or should have done more in this window. We didn't. We have improved our first team just with the signing of Petr Cech massively. I think that Mark made a point that Man City have improved, and there's no argument. I think Sterling is a brilliant signing for them, and I think over the next 5 years he'll really, go on to be one of the best players around. I think for the money they spend, 56 million or whatever it was on De Bruyne, doesn't improve them massively, in my opinion. I think he's a really good player. But they've already got really good players in those positions. I think that their big holes are in their defensive midfield position with Fernandinho, who, despite his 2 goals, I don't think he's a very good footballer. And central defence, I think the same could be said of Chelsea. I think that Matic had a very, very good season. But we haven't seen him consistently be this superstar defensive midfielder that everyone seems to to think he is, and their central defence looks shaky as well. So
they have bought. City did buy Otamendi though, and he was considered one of the best players in the league last season. So
we'll see how that goes. A lot of players are considered the best player in whatever league they are. Once they come into the Premier League, they look terrible. So
Pascal Sigon won French Player of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, you go and look at Quadrado. Was where was he? Fiorentina, and he was incredible. Gervinho here was appalling, and then went to Roma and was fantastic. The year before he came to us, he had more goals and assists than Hazard. So,
but the fact is, they're actually addressing a problem that they perceive they have by actually bringing somebody in. Whether he turns out to be or not is another question. But they are actually addressing that problem. I think.
Yeah, no, I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that. I just think that the point I was trying to make is that the trend within the club is a forward one. We're not losing our best players. We're keeping our best players, and we're adding to it. And I still absolutely think that Arsene Wenger has the.
So within the 2 seasons, because you've got this season and next season. Next season is his final season, so it's said to be. Do you think he will win us either or both the Champions League and the Premier League title?
Not necessarily. I think he'll go as close as anybody else could with Arsenal.
And that's good enough for you?
Yeah.
Axe?
I think the question's more, can Arsenal challenge rather than can Arsenal win?
Yeah.
Because
I think people want to know whether you think we can win it rather than challenge. Challenge is...
If Olivier Giroud stays fit, if Francis Coquelin stays fit, if Manchester City have a little blip, there's so many external factors there. For me, I want my team to challenge. I want to sort of, have that feeling of going into the final day even still being in the title race. That's what I ask, because it's not as simple as expecting my team to win the league, because it's not that easy. With the money City and Chelsea are spending, it's just not that easy. But I want Arsenal to challenge. Can we challenge? I think the squad's good enough. I think we do need an element of luck with injuries. But yeah,
and decisions as well, Akhil. Like in the last 2 games, a blatant penalty against Newcastle and a goal ruled for that was onside out. That if we'd drawn at Newcastle and we did at Liverpool, that would have been 4 points that, with better decisions going our way, it can make all the difference come the end of the season.
But sometimes don't you think it's a matter of taking the decision-making process out of the referee's hand and then just doing your job? I mean, we've created 60-something chances so far. I think we're top of the chances created this season alone. And you'll get
game chances where you don't create those chances, and you need to get that goal that Ramsey tucks in at the back post playing from the right wing. And you take it and you win that game.
I know, but the second half, I think we created triple what Liverpool created in the second half. So we did, even though we didn't play very well that game, there were chances. Mm-hmm. There were other chances. We can't just think of, we didn't get the decision for Ramsey and we didn't get a penalty on Saturday. Again, people were saying, Ozil wasn't there on Saturday. But from what I can see, I don't think we actually needed Ozil. We created quite a few chances and we didn't put them away.
I mean, that's something we need to, obviously, we haven't started well, we haven't scored enough goals. I think that's fair for everyone to see. But I think in the players we know we have got goals in this sort of team, world-class striker or no world-class striker. We have got goals in the team. So that's just, again, the sort of the word I'm going to use against balance, once we kind of find that formula, I think, we'll kind of do better. In terms of Arsene Wenger, I don't, we live in a funny world at the moment where a lot of people judge managers on their sort of transfer window kind of performance, but obviously ultimately it's about winning football games. So beat Stoke and, maybe I'm dreaming, but go to Chelsea and beat them, suddenly the whole world looks different. So in the next month, certainly September, going to kind of Chelsea, going to Leicester. Obviously we've got that Capital One Cup tie as well. Champions League starts, I think, end of September, start of October, we'll know a lot more. But I mean, ultimately, if Arsenal are to challenge, we do need a lot of luck in terms of keeping our key players fit.
And consistency as well, because usually it's either one half of the season or the other, isn't it? If we can just sort of maintain that level of consistency throughout the season.
A level of consistency, and it's also up to Arsene Wenger as well and the coaching staff to make sure the players do remain fresh. Sometimes I think rotation wise maybe we kind of sometimes we maybe don't do it as much. I think, whenever Thomas Rosicky does come back, for just an example, or Danny Welbeck, to give other people breathers, it's important we kind of pick the right lineups. We give players breathers when they need it to keep them fresh and to keep them going all season. So we don't just have a 3-month spell where we're brilliant and, average for 3 months. So it's kind of, there's a lot of factors involved.
Mark, anything to add to that before we shut it down, so to say?
No, I mean they're all really valid points, and that I just think Wenger would actually do some of them.
Therein lies the hard rub, doesn't it? All right, that's been a podcast special reviewing the transfer window, the squad, and we're looking forward and ahead to the rest of the season. Hope you enjoyed it. Please hit the subscribe button on the YouTube, SoundCloud, and come along to our website, GoonerRamble.com. I want to thank special guests Mark King and Ricky.
Cheers, guys.
All right, and regular Akhil. Thanks for coming on, mate. And we'll be back, I suppose, post Stoke City. That's
Up
been
the Arsenal.
Up the Arsenal, indeed. That's been a Gooner Ramble pod. I'm your host, Giles. Thank you and goodbye.